Good day, JCI members, distinguished guests, partners, and sustainability advocates joining us from around the world. Welcome to JCI Sustain 360 48-hour Rest to Sustainability, a global initiative of the 2026 JCI Sustainability Commission. My name is Rajni Thapa from JCI Nepal. Namaste. And I have the honor of serving as the 2026 JCI Vice President assigned to Asia and the Pacific. JCI Sustain 360 brings together JCI members and organizations across the world to learn, take meaningful action, and curate measurable impact around some of the most important sustainability challenges facing our communities. As part of this initiative, the 48 Hours Rest to Sustainability provides a global platform for experts, practitioners, and young leaders to share knowledge, experience, and solutions that can inspire meaningful action. Today, we are focused on theme water and water security. Water is one of our most essential natural resources. Yet, around the world, access to safe and reliable water is becoming increasingly challenging. Water security is therefore not simply about conserving water. It is about ensuring that communities have reliable access to safe water, protecting water resources for future generations, and developing systems that are resilient to changing environmental conditions. Technology, responsible water management, community participation, and strong collaboration across the sectors will all be essential in addressing these challenges. Our keynote topic today is therefore Water 2030, Accelerating Solution for a Thirsty Planet. It is now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Ankita Menon. Dr. Ankita is a recognized advocate for water stewardship and sustainability and was honored with the NewsX Shakti Award 2025 for excellence in water stewardship and sustainability. Her professional experience include consultancy and engagement with governmental and non-governmental organizations, including institutional such as Invest India and the Nordic Water Forum. She is also an accomplished writer, photographer, and documentary filmmaker, and has presented her work at international forums, including the Royal Geographical Society in London. As a public speaker and moderator, she has contributed to national and international conservation and water, climate, health, and sustainability, bringing together the perspective from governments, industry, and academia and civil society. She is particularly passionate about advancing water security through community engagement and promoting sustainable and energy efficient solutions for drinking water and waste water challenges. Dr. Ankita, thank you for joining us and for sharing your knowledge and experience with the JCI global community. We look forward to learn from your perspective. The virtual stage is now yours. Please carry on.
Thank you so much, Rajni. I guess it's an absolute pleasure for me to be here and to be talking on something which is very important and pertinent in today's world. Let me just share my screen with you before I start to indulge in this very appropriate topic. All right. So today's topic is 2030. Why I have chosen this topic is because we had Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2030, which covered SDG 6 precisely on water. And in this theme, I want to begin by carefully dissecting one word from this title, which is the word thirsty. Now, the question is that have we become thirsty or have we sort of overcome this thirsty nature of this planet, or for that matter, human beings living life? I want to say that it's not for the first time that we have been thirsty. Our ancestors, they lived through droughts, civilizations rose and fell around rivers, communities developed extraordinary ways to harvest rain, store water, and recharge our groundwater. And these shared this feeling of sharing of resources also has existed since time immemorial. We have very different ways of conserving water in the sense of stepwells, tanks, johars, and I guess, Rajni, you're from Nepal, and you must have heard the name of Dhunge Dhara. It's a system of a very brilliant network of stone spouts and hilltop ponds, wherein, wherein, you free that sort of rainwater to the public year around. So that sort of channelization of taking care of the thirst of the people of the planet has been there. What's exactly fascinating about this sort of crisis that is 21st century induced is that the relationship with water has changed. And what exactly has changed is that the water itself is not new. It has existed since time immemorial. So what has changed is the way in which we have looking at water and the relationship we have had with water. For example, we are extracting water, we are polluting it faster, we are moving it farther, we are using it more, let's say, intensively rather atrociously. And these sort of things is not just disrupting our ecological systems, our ecosystems, but the regulation that used to happen very amicably in a very balanced way is not happening anymore. So this real story of 21st century water crisis is not simple. And that's the reason that the solutions that we are looking at becomes even more important. And for that, let me just begin with our first slide. So let's bring this language of sustainable development goals that is more close to anyone, a youngster or anyone who is a global citizen talking about water. So exactly in 2015, the world made a promise. The promise was about having water and sanitation given to all by 2030. That was the agenda. I guess everyone is familiar with the SDG Agenda 2030. There were certain goals that were being laid to be achieved by they began in 2015, and the targets that specifically hold the SDG, the umbrella SDG 6, is all about these six subtitles, which are about safe drinking water, which is the target 6.1. And it talks about the universal and affordable access to safe drinking water, which is the utmost because water is a basic need. Then came the sanitation and hygiene, which we are all familiar with. Then it is about water quality and wastewater. And the focus was about cutting the pollution and making sure that the chemical waste does not reach our water bodies. 6.4 target was all about water efficiency, which was all about becoming energy efficient because most of our energy losses were happening because of the inefficiency of our water systems. Then management, the management that the ancients have taken very much care of, but we moderns going to the moon, but not taking care of the water management too seriously was the topmost agenda as well. And of course, the ecosystem, because when we take care of the ecosystem, the water takes care of itself. But when the ecosystems are not being taken care of, then the water resources also fall stop. And all of this was holistically given a thread by the support and action call, which was for global cooperation and community involvement. So all these sort of things were linked, and the global community came forward to say that we will be able to achieve the SDG Agenda 2030. But what has happened? Today we see that we are just 4 years to 2030 target, and there is something which is becoming unachievable day by day. And here is where I would want to take the audience back to the MDGs that started in 2000. The year 2000, we thought that we will take care of our water resources and make sure that everybody gets clean and affordable, safe drinking water. And that was not, that was met, and that was being said that it is met by 2010, while actually there was a very discouraging trend that was seen in 2010, or rather the years from 2010 to 2015. We saw that there was improved access of the source, but that didn't necessarily mean that we had access to safe drinking water. Hence, MDGs was that the conversation was largely about access. But the questions regarding if a household has an improved source, if there is a water point, or if there is sanitation, all those sort of things were not taken care of. Yes. So the idea of safely managed water actually came from the SDGs, which were in 2015. They said that enough talking about improved access. We right now have to focus more so upon the safely managed water that actually hinted towards source sustainability. And that's I believe that it was a profound change because having a tap is not necessarily the same thing as having water security. A tap can exist, but where does water come from? Does it come every day? Is there enough? Is there enough water, or is it safe? All these sort of questions were not taken yet so seriously in MDGs, but SDGs came up with a thought that the implementation has to be guided. But somewhere as we move closer towards the deadline of Agenda 2030, we realize that these sort of statistics that we are looking at, that 74% of the population has got access to safe drinking water, they're just indicators, because nations, when they actually having some sort of collaborations of the state data, and then it comes to the national data statistics, and these are parameters or indicators, but they do not really tell us if what's the real reality of the global water systems. And this sort of distinction is primarily important because we as policymakers or change makers are only focusing upon numbers, and we do not yet know that what sort of systems exist, especially in the areas where the access is unjust or inequitable. And we all know that the consumption, the global math, we 2.5% of the Earth's water is fresh, and probably even lesser because most of the water is lying under our glaciers, and we cannot just know how much is there. Then the consumption drivers are many, because we see that the population growth has been escalating. We are expanding our cities quite a lot, and the ways in which our industry is heading, the water intensive industries, be it textiles, be it paper and pulp, be it distilleries, all of these are actually causing a lot of uh, over extraction of water resources. And as I already mentioned, that there is an inequality gap. So we already know that sub-Saharan Africa, it faces the deepest deficit globally of clean water, and less than 30% of the population has access to safely managed drinking water. The pollution reality, we all know that not just the industries have to be blamed for the pollution, but is also the households, the urban primarily, that actually release most of their water into the ecosystems without even treating it. So we have silent threats as well. That are the chemicals, the microplastics, because we all know that we are slowly and steadily becoming the consumers of bottled water, and that is something that is growing up at a substantial rate. So these also things, microplastics and PFAS, they all poison our pristine water tables. Then talking about the stress zones, the Middle East, the Central and Southern Asia, the Northern Africa, they withdraw over 100% of their renewable supply yearly. And it's not just restricted to this. Coming from India, even I know that the Northern India, that was once the food bowl of India, still actually counting and contributing to a lot of our food stats, is actually also doing 100% withdrawal rates of that means that the withdrawal rate actually is increased, and it is much more than the recharge rate of the groundwater. So this all is the crisis. It's from the past, it's from the MDGs, and the present is it's the SDGs that we have not yet met, that we promised. And potable water becomes even more necessary because safe drinking water is a basic need and everybody needs it. Now, the clock of this 2030 countdown that is quite concerning is that now we think that we will not be able to actually get to the 2030 goals. The UN has predicted that until 2049, we will not be able to reach the targets that I earlier mentioned to you. We will not be able to fulfill them. And the deficit, we already know that 2.2 billion people currently, they still live without safe drinking water. The sanitation crisis is not new. And this hampers the education of women and children, because it's the girl child that you always see that is with the mother and is wanting to find out a safe drinking water source. And they say that the UN report, it said that if we have to actually reach this 2030 agenda, we actually have to pace it up by 8 times. And I do not yet think so that it will be practical, but against the hope that we have, it seems difficult because at the same time, the funding cliff, as we can see that the international aids that used to be there for water and sanitations, they have actively declined over the period of last 10 years. So what's going wrong? The first wrong that happened was when MDGs, we had money, we had the power, we had the will, we had all the globe wanting to make sure that water scarcity becomes a thing of a past. So we did not understand the difference between water access. We thought that water access just means that there is water security. We did not see if the source was giving water on everyday basis or there were quality issues or not. And the classic example of this is the Jal Jeevan Mission in India, where we, from 2019, we had a target that we have to make sure that the rural households have a functional household tap water connection, FHTCs. But it didn't happen because it was a very ambitious goal, but 3.60 lakh crores rupees of money was been spent in these 5 years. So most of the money was being put for infrastructure, but we again did the same sort of mistake where we actually focused on the low hanging fruits rather than focusing on source sustainability. Another thing that is going wrong is that we are solving the symptoms instead of our watersheds. We are building pipelines, we are building treatment plants, we are building dams and desalination plants, but the fundamental water cycle is deteriorating only because we are just doing the solution. The solution is just symptomatic. And when that happens, when we don't look at a watershed holistically, and that sort of thing has been seen over the globe through the case studies that have been conducted, where the industrial plants of, let's say, water industry in water intensive industries have happened, you would see that people have contested, the communities have contested because they feel like that the groundwater, their resources have been extracted so much, and the needs of at the cost of the needs of the communities. So I guess just by having some sort of gray infrastructure, there is a lot of need of having living infrastructure help the crisis that we are having. A very beautiful example of what goes wrong is the rain that falls on us. I guess that always having this sort of restriction to blame the governments is not enough. For the audience of the youngsters that are part of JCI and wanting to build a water secure future, it's very important to first see what sort of thing you do when rain falls on your terrace, on in your community. Do we see that the rain percolates into the nearby wetlands or the forests, or it just becomes runoff, or becomes sewage, or just evaporates? So these sort of questions are the building blocks for anyone, because at the same time, I guess what goes wrong privately at a personal level goes wrong publicly. It's the nature of the laws that takes care of it. Then when it comes to going wrong, I guess we treat groundwater as an invisible bank account. Why that happens is because we believe that seeing is believing. And what we do not see, we do not happen to measure it. And that's why AI regulations are falling place these times, because it's the AI, it's the IoT sensors that are finally telling us what's happening below the ground. The farmers in India and the developing nations as well, and even for that matter in the developed nations, they do not have that sort of sense of what is losing when there is an invisibility linked to it. For example, I have already given you the example of the farmers. Let's talk about the industrialists. And if I have to give you the example of how things happen in India, you will know that whosoever gets the access, and it's in the law, that whosoever gets the access of the ground, he or she or the organization also gets the access of the water beneath. Now, the ground that you see, the area that you have is it has a boundary, but the fluid below the ground does not have any boundary. So it's very possible that if you put a bore well and you extract groundwater from the very area that you have legally to yourself, it's what happens is that when we extract, we also take the water of the neighbor. And mostly this has happened in the industrial, I would say the examples are more so industrial and, of course, agricultural, that whatever we use in private, it has consequences that are public. So rather than asking the question today that who owns the borewell, I guess it's more important that we understand things at the aquifer level. The another very pertinent issue that is going south is the use of wastewater. I guess because it has a prefix waste, so wastewater again is treated even worse than water. Uh, our traditional models have told us that the fresh water that we use that comes into our taps, it is used, and the one that has been wasted, it just flows. It flows for some sort of treatment, some sort of secondary treatment or primary treatment, but then it gets discharged. Now, where does it gets discharged? Sometimes it's getting discharged into the water bodies, and sometimes it's getting discharged into the fields of the farmers, agricultural fields, I mean. But what we really need is the recovery of that wastewater, because most of the times, just after the treatment, rather than discharging it, it has to be reused. And there are ample ways to showcase how it can be reused. The gray water can be reused in your household, and different sorts of water that come from agriculture and industries can be reused for many cooling, many things, including agriculture, construction, cooling, industrial processes, and landscaping. So there are so many things that we can use for from wastewater, but we do not. And the UN's data, it shows that wastewater treatment and reporting, it actually remained a major gap, because nations, they never actually told that how much water are they wasting, and what were the measurements in place when it came to wastewater. Um, then the most important thing is the water, food, and energy nexus. Why so? Because we differentiate through ministries, through department, through government departments, that we have different departments, and all exist in silos. And there is not holistic, comprehensive policy or law that actually talks about the integration of these three, which is the water, food, and energy. And we know that where the water never flows, the energy deficits are being seen, and then it impacts the food chain then. So this sort of nexus is something that we have to see, and we have not yet become cross-sectoral, and we still stick to our, whenever we talk about water, we just stick to wash. This is something that we did not yet learn. As I already mentioned, that we have lost the connection that we used to have with our traditional water systems and what cultural meanings we put through them. For example, we treated water as a gift. Our civilization had names of gods linked to water. And now, when we start to treat water as a utility, something to be extracted, something to be used and consumed, we somehow forget and start to build a very sort of utilitarian perspective for water. And that is what we have to challenge, because as youngsters, we have to not go just forward, we have to go backwards to learn what sort of essence there was when it came to water, and what can we do to maintain that relationship. Now, coming to the accelerating solutions for the kind of things that are happening at this moment, we already have smart infrastructure in place. And AI is the next big thing when we talk about IoT-based sensors that talk about water leaks. There's ample data that talks about how each and every nation and countries, they are basically not checking with their leaks. Especially true with the country like India, because it's a big country, And what happens is that the leaky infrastructure, which actually should be the concern of the policymakers, is not yet being taken into notice. So these sort of things exist, be it in South Asian or countries or in African countries. That is something that we have to address, because the technologies are there, the innovations are there, but we are not just wanting to make sure that it's widely uh, then the circularity of it, because we are talking about economy. When we talk about wastewater, we are talking about treating it, and which is where my expertise also comes in, because I work as a strategic advisor to Nico Nanobubbles. So it is a very brilliant technology. And why so? Because nanobubbles. So basically, the intent of any technology that is linked with circular economy has to be that it has to be energy efficient. There are so many technologies that we have, but what differentiates a better technology, a sustainable technology, is its energy efficiency. So nanobubbles, they are extremely small gas particles, and they improve the transfer of gas such as oxygen or ozone in the water. And it's particularly interesting in the case of wastewater treatment, because aeration is something which consumes the most energy in any industrial process. And when we deployed Nico nanobubbles at one of the Indian industrial sewage treatment plant, we saw that it showed around 77% of energy reduction in power consumption. And so for me, this sort of energy transfer or energy innovations are we looking at when we talk about water 2030. And more than that, I guess the advanced desalination processes are already in place, and we have enormous examples in sub-Saharan areas. Then the most important thing that we need to focus on when we come closer to the deadline are the nature-based solutions. So we all know that desalination is happening, and so many countries like Israel, they have already shown the way. But linking it up with solar panels should be the next big thing, because using energy um, for desalination is again exhaustive. So to cut heavy carbon emissions, we have to use the solar energy as much as possible. Then coming to the nature-based solutions and systems, I guess that I already raised this when I was talking about ecosystems preservation. It's the ecosystem in place that should actually be taken care of if we have to have an end, because means are more important than ends. So if you take care of the ecosystem, the water takes care of itself. And I would briefly tell you a little bit more about nature-based systems in the next slide. Regenerative agriculture is nothing but making sure that we have smart technologies in place and we do not waste water as much as we do in developing nations. Then we already have boundary treaties, but there is need for many more, so that we have some sort of because all of the countries, all of the nations, they have some shared river basins and lakes. So the collaboration has to be not just in the papers; it should be implemented practically. Community governance, and which happens in many of the communities that are closer to nature, closer to the civilizational knowledge systems and the beliefs that they have in place. So those sort of indigenous knowledge systems, and they say that women are closer to water, they're closer to nature. So to manage these sort of regional waters, I guess empowering these localities, these communities is so much important. Then the last but not the least is our connection with water, that I've already explained, that till the time we do not link water, not just biologically, because 70% of human body is water, but also the need that not utilitarian perspective, but the perspective of the connect that we have with nature. So there are certain solutions that have come from different parts of the world, and they show us that how things have improvised with time. And if we take the example of Australia, it's using sensors and data analytics to detect unusual water flows and hidden leaks in its network. The kind of billions of liters of water that, for example, India wastes on a daily basis trying to transport water, these sensors basically figure out what needs to be done. So the right technology, the right sensor, it measures, and to measure and to monitor water is the need of the hour. So there are things that we can learn from these sort of systems that help us detect thousands of megaliters of water loss and thereby significantly reducing leak repair time. So the shift that we understand from Australia is that you have to make pipes as intelligent systems and not just think of them as just mere transport systems. Um, then the case of Orange County, this was a really brilliant case, which actually what they do is that they take highly treated wastewater through advanced purification, and they put back this recovered water into the groundwater system. And if we talk about everydayness of this system, then around 500 million liters of purified water is being generated every day. So you see that if you study this more keenly, you will understand that wastewater is now no longer the end of the water cycle. It becomes a new resource. And what do you do with the resource entirely depends upon your geography. Then comes the example of Abu Dhabi. And they basically tested desalination technologies that were designed to work with renewable energy. And of course, the idea was to use less electricity. So the pilot program that they did, they figured out that the membrane systems would target less than I would say some kilowatt hour per cubic meter energy. So the shift that they showed was that rather than creating more energy problems, we have to figure out that what is the energy efficiency in place. Um, then, if we take the case of New York, of course, this is not something that is only I mean, coming from New York, because it's age old and it has happened in many civilizations already. So, if you protect forests, wetlands, and its watershed, because we know that these ecosystems help protect the city's drinking water quality. So, New York basically, there was a the name of the watershed is Catskill, Delaware. And this watershed supplied roughly 90% of the city's water on a typical day, and which is not happening earlier. So these sort of things happen when you take care of the aura of the ecosystem rather than just putting more infrastructure. Watershed itself is an infrastructure, nature's infrastructure to take care of. Then there is an example of Andhra Pradesh, which is from India itself. As I already told you, that community management, the natural farming approach that Andhra Pradesh's government and the communities they took care of. They connected soil health, the farming practices, and connected it with water conservation. So instead of only making irrigation more efficient, they tried to make the farm landscape more resilient, and that happens when every person from the community, they understand that they have some sort of role to play. Um, so the idea is to not to just save water in the pipe. The idea is to make the soil better. That can actually increase the capacity of the soil. Then as I've already mentioned about the transboundary water cooperation, I guess 4 countries were sharing this river, and they have created institutions to jointly manage its river and infrastructure. So shared dams and water resources, which actively support irrigation, hydropower, and regional needs, is the moment of the global inspiration that we have of saving water globally. So this sort of cooperation is something, because a river crossing borders can become a reason of cooperation, is something not new. It has happened before as well. But finally, we are getting back to it, and we have to catalyze this sort of thing. Again, communities, I have already told you that how communities have become water managers. So I guess the need of the hour again is about finding more water from the places that we don't really want to see, from the places that are actually taken for granted. So living within the budget is the need of the hour. And if you study more about the Hiware Bazaar of Maharashtra, you will find so. as I already mentioned, that I will want to give you a little bit in-depth understanding of nature-based solutions, which is NBS today. Of course, this is also not new, but we are not using it as much as we were supposed to use. Um, I have already given you the example of New York, of how New York took care of its watershed forests. Singapore, we did not yet touch, but all of that is also happening through the use of nature-based solutions. They have a ABC Waters program, the Singaporeans, and it integrates their drains, their canals, their reservoirs with wetlands, rain gardens, and vegetated swales. So what happens is that their terraced wetlands and swales, they help retain the stormwater during heavy rain, and they release it gradually. Another amazing example comes from Singapore. Um, so what Singapore's ABC program, what it does is that it integrates drains, canals, and reservoirs with wetlands, rain gardens, vegetated swales, and landscaped spaces. So what happens is that these sort of terraced wetlands and swales, they help retain stormwater during heavy rain, and then they release it gradually so that the city has more and more water whenever it's needed. So they have already completed around 57 ABC water projects. And this is a very important learning that we get from this example, is that park can also be used as a flood management system. Okay, and then when we talk about Netherlands, their understanding of their understanding is very important when it comes to water conservation, because they understand river differently. In developing nations, we have this thought that, you know, we have to utilize the floodplains of the river, but what they say is that you have to give room to the river, because river needs floodplains, and that's exactly what is missing in most of the developing nations that are building industrial structures, real estates across the rivers and changing its direction. So instead of continuously trying to confine rivers behind higher and stronger barriers, the Room for River initiative in Netherlands, they give more space to the river, and the principle is really, really simple. You work with the river's natural behavior rather than trying to eliminate it. So we learn that sometimes flood protection means giving more water somewhere to go rather than just keeping it for yourselves. The most important concept that a city needs to develop is the sponge cities. We see that our roads, our infrastructure around the roads is not that great. And that happens because we somehow forget that the rainwater that needs to percolate uh, closer to the road, we just concretize it. And there are so many sponge parks in making in different cities, and New York is a very beautiful example because they have done quite a lot in a very and in the least of the times, especially in urban areas. There are very small scale green infrastructure projects that they have undertaken, and they are built to capture stormwater and allow it to infiltrate rather than immediately enter into the sewer systems. So this is something that we have to adopt as soon as possible. Then comes the mangroves. We all know that they are natural coastal defense systems, and it's one of the major water related NBS solution. Why? Because mangroves, they have the capacity to actually reduce wave energy and trap sediments, protect the shorelines, and provide the habitat that the place needs. And this is particularly relevant in cities and in communities that are basically going through sea level rise and cyclones and coastal floodings. So this comes as a very beautiful solution. It does not even cost you money. It's natural. And so it is very safe to say that a healthy coastline can also be a very good infrastructure when it comes to water security. This is a natural infrastructure, and constructed wetlands is something which is nature, and bringing nature and constructed nature where it's needed. So it's the use of deliberate, I would say deliberate use of plants, soils, and microbial processes to remove the pollutants, to remove the excessive TDS or whatever water has excess of, and improve water quality. So constructed wetlands, they treat water, they provide storage, they create habitat, and they also support recreation as well. So these are the sort of things that nature-based solutions are becoming the important thing for making sure that we have a water secure world. So when now coming to the point that water 2030, is it achievable? Is the agenda SDG 2030 achievable? So I would say that it's highly, highly ambitious, because we are just 4 years away from this target. And we started with millennial development goals that started in 2000. So it's pretty scary, interesting, and concerning at the same time, that we have managed to reach the moon. We have managed to reach the Mars, the planets. But when it comes to making a basic need accessible, affordable, and available to the population of the world, we are not able to do so. And now it's going to be 30 years since the inception of these goals, first MDGs and now SDGs. Yes, the intent of the SDG was clear, but as I already told you, that now they say that we won't be able to even meet this deadline, and probably this deadline will be shifted to 2049. The ambitious goal of reaching 2030, I personally think, is not achievable, because the solutions already exist, but we have yet not scaled. It's not that the world does not know about biospheres. It's not that the world does not know about constructed wetlands, or the need of community governance, or the need of industrial water effluent systems to be treated. Things exist, but the scale does not exist. And with scale, another thing that does not exist is the speed. So I guess the process to make it achievable, even if it's 2040 or 2050, is that personally, as youngsters, as change makers, we have to first start from our own roots, from making sure that the right kind of technology marries the right kind of issue on ground. And at the same time, because we are living in 21st century and it's all about business, it's all about marketing, it's all about consumption. So the corporate social responsibility that lies in front of the businesses, in front of water intensive industries, has to be made really, really accountable, because they are the ones who are actually engaged with so much of profit maximization. They are the ones who actually can use certain percentage of their profit margins for the betterment of our natural systems, for our ecosystems, for our water security. So I guess responsible business together with personal business with water, because they say that in India, we have a very beautiful saying that make water everyone's business. So if it has to be business, that it has to be the business of all of us. And as I already mentioned, that if we want to go forward to make the globe water secure, we have to go backwards to understand what really we are missing. What were our ancient civilizations, our people doing better, that somehow we lost, despite of having the right technology, despite of having the right sort of approach and innovations, we still are missing our targets. So I guess the need of the hour is to become a little more connected with water, and a little more innovative for the approaches that we have to use for marrying these sort of right technologies with the issues that exist on ground, and to make sure that whosoever is running any sort of business, any sort of industry, they do so responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ankita, for the insightful and thought-provoking keynote presentation. Your perspective have reminded us that water security is not simply an environmental concern. It is closely connected to climate resilience, public health, technology, economic development, and the long-term well-being of the community. Today, keynote has reinforced just now fundamental water is to our shared future. Water supports every perspective of life, yet climate change and increasing pressure on natural resources are making the challenges of securing safe and reliable water increasingly complex. Protecting these vital resources therefore require more than simply reducing the consumption. It requires responsible water management, innovation, resilient infrastructure, appropriate technology, and a strong cooperation between government, businesses, academia, civil society, and community. We have also been reminded that water security begins with awareness, but must lead to action. Community need to understand the challenges they face. Young people need to be equipped with knowledge and opportunity to contribute. And organizations need to consider how their decision and practice influence the ability and quality of water resources. For JCI members and young leaders, this creates an important opportunity. We can promote responsible water use within our organization and community. We can raise awareness about water conservation and water security. We can support innovative and sustainable solutions. We can engage schools, businesses, government, and community organization, and we can build partnership that transform awareness into lasting impact. Most importantly, protecting water today means protecting the health, resilience, and opportunity of generations to come. On behalf of Junior Chamber International and 2026 JCI Sustainability Commission, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to Dr. Ankita Menon for sharing her knowledge, experience, and perspective with the JCI global community. We also extend our heartfelt thanks to everyone joining us live and to those who will watch this session later. We hope today keynote encourage you to recognize the value of every drops and to take meaningful action towards protecting our most vital resources. Thank you for being part of JCI Sustain 360 48-hour Race to Sustainability. I'm Rajni Thapa from JCI Nepal. Until our next session, let's lead, connect, and evolve for a sustainable future. Thank you very much.